It is now 7 a.m. I'm going to call the regular meeting to order. Requirements of the Sunshine Law have been met. This meeting was advertised in Burlington County Times on January 10th, 2022. Electronic notice was given to the NJAC 5:39-1.5. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have a moment of silence. Roll call.
Committeewoman Berkeley. Committeeman Carr.
Present.
Committeewoman Longo.
Present.
Mayor Henley.
Present.
Committeewoman Wright.
Present.
We are pulling the agenda and tabling it the minutes from today's agenda. We will now open the meeting for public comment on the agenda items only. Please remember to state your name and address for the record. On agenda items, sorry. Yes, I'm a little hoarse. I apologize, guys. Everybody good? Monthly meeting minutes, monthly reports. Was there?
Close public comment.
I'm sorry, I'm slipping that day. We're going to close public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Monthly reports, West Hampton Public Works, resolution 152-22, payment of vouchers. This resolution approves the payment of bills through 11/1/2022. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Linda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Berkeley. Yes.
Oh.
Carr.
Yes.
Longo.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Mayor Henley.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
We'll give you a minute. Go ahead. We are only at the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, of course. You ready? You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Consent agenda resolutions, resolution note. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted with a single motion. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by the certification of availability of funds. Any items requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. Do we have anything to remove from the consent agenda? With that being said, do we have a motion?
So moved. Berkeley.
Second.
Roll call?
Berkeley.
Yes.
Carr.
Yes.
Longo.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Mayor Henley.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Open meeting for public comment. Please remember to state your name and address for the record. Sir. This is where you can make a public comment. It doesn't have to be on the agenda.
Yes. My name's Ron Preston.
Well, you want to come up, sir?
That's Ron Preston. Report, West Hampton.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Because we didn't hear that.
Ronald Preston, 4 Oak Tree Court, West Hampton.
Thank you.
I specifically wanted to address the concerns of the 10-10-22 report on warehousing and distribution centers, the technical appendix to the master plan. And I'm not sure whether you're aware of or not, but is it the planning board or zoning board has been going around for months and months on end for the new warehouse on the corner of Irick and Woodland Road. And apparently, there are a number of items in this new report that's come out that should be addressed for this particular warehouse. Particularly item 10, page 31 of that report, the proposed rezoning, where you're talking about in the report on block 804, lot 12, 403 and 404, and the accompanying map on page 32. The property right now is zoned industrial, and the master plan is looking, one of the recommendations is to rezone those lots as R5 residential and R1 residential. Basically, what's going on is these are two industrial properties that are on the east side of the turnpike. They are the only industrial properties on the east side. And I'm sure if you've gone through the neighborhoods, you can see that a number of people are against this warehouse being built on that plot of land, mainly for safety reasons, traffic. If you look at page 33 of the report, item number 12, you also recommend that we should look at impacts on the larger network of roads in the immediate West Hampton area. Number 13, post-occupancy monitoring. 14, request for emergency service and community impact studies. Noise impact studies, which is item 15. Dark lighting, item number 23. None of these items have been addressed with the zoning board. And it's quite clear that the master plan for West Hampton Township is woefully out of date. And before this warehouse is allowed to go through, I believe that all these items should be addressed and additional information given to the public or the zoning board. On page 36 on the recommendations, item number 27, you also acknowledge in this technical appendix to the master plan that there are dangerous conditions, high traffic volumes and delays, limited visibility, as well as limited maneuverability for larger vehicles to negotiate turns. This is specifically on the Irick, going over the Turnpike Bridge, Irick Road and Woodland. It's extremely difficult to see. And I'm not sure, as I addressed the zoning board last week, I believe it was last week, that I don't think anyone's even looked at a turning radius template, whereas these large trucks, these WB62, which is would be typical interstate trucks that would travel to these warehouses, they have a certain turning radius, which is about 45 feet. And there are numerous templates out there, usually DOT, as well as other industry standards and standards from other states that can be looked at. It would appear to me that trucks making that turn, also the turn on Irick and Wood Lane, where there's a light, where there's presently a light on that corner, I don't believe these trucks can make that turn without impinging upon traffic in the opposite turn lanes. In other words, they can't make that turn without going over the line onto other traffic. And I believe that is one of the key things that needs to be addressed. I think most of the other things have been brought up in the various meetings with the zoning committee about traffic safety, having the library, school children right next to this warehousing facility. What do we do about parking for trucks that aren't going to be parked at the local warehouse itself, what do they do for food? One of the recommendations in this technical design thing is to have basically a cafeteria or food service at the warehouse. None of this has been addressed by the applicant for the warehouse. So it looks as though the variance that they are asking for, various variances that they're asking for in for the warehouse have not been addressed, especially for this technical appendix of the master plan. And I believe that they should be before they are allowed to go forward any farther. Also, their traffic impact statements were out of date. Using the latest standards, they were using a 6th edition rather than a 7th edition, which invalidates their traffic study. So because of this, I think the warehouse should be put on hold, or that the township committee itself should be talking directly with the zoning board, bringing up all these additional master plan recommendations that have been made before that warehouse goes any further. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comment.
Eileen Kariskin, 4 Oak Tree Court, West Hampton. Also, as you can see, the two of us are pretty hepped up on this zoning going on. I read through the proposed addendum to the master plan. A couple of things I think we need to consider. There's a section here that they have on sensitive land uses, and they list a number of the established residential communities in the proposal here, and they say that they're part of the sensitive land uses, but they omitted Townsfield, the Irick Woods section, and the Irick Lakes. I think that needs to be put in here. Also, they talk about schools, and they list our schools, but they do not mention some of the public buildings, such as the fire and EMS. I think that needs to be put in. Some of the county buildings, I think, need consideration, and these are all along Wood Lane, which is the route that this proposed warehouse trucks are going to go up and down. They're missing the county buildings of the library, the human services, and I don't know if the weather thing is a county or whatever that is, but that's there also. That was pretty much what I saw in here. Now, I just have a couple of questions that maybe you can answer right off the top. On the proposed master plan, when does that go up for a vote or approval, or when does that happen?
Would you like me to address the process? I'm Robert Bright, the township attorney. So the master plan report that you're looking at that was proposed,
Right.
I'm not sure at what meeting, but at one of the upcoming meetings of the Land Development Board, they will have a public hearing. So all of the comments that you've made regarding that master plan report, you should come back to the Land Development Board and tell them your comments and concerns regarding it. After that public hearing, the Land Development Board will vote to approve the report, amend the report, or take other action based on the public comments.
Okay.
After that process, once the report is adopted, it is then sent to the Township Committee. The Township Committee will then adopt zoning ordinances. The recommendations that are contained in the report recommend certain changes to the Township ordinances and zoning ordinances. Those will then be based on whatever the committee whatever those recommendations they want to take action on. Ordinances will be prepared, and that's a 2-meeting process.
Okay.
There'll be a meeting early next year, most likely is the timing of it, that it will be introduced, and then there will be a second meeting where there's a public hearing for you to make any comments regarding the the ordinances that are proposed.
Okay. Well, then I'll go forward and just share my concern with that process. So we're looking at this warehouse at the corner of Irick and Wood Lane. And the proposal there is over 2 buildings, and it's over 500,000 square feet. And they have asked for many, many variances. In the new proposed master plan, it is so, what they're proposing is so far off what the vision is in this proposed master plan that my concern is the warehouse gets approved based on where we stand now. When the zoning plan gets approved sometime next year, the warehouse will already been approved and started. And it's a damn shame, to be honest with you, because where that piece of property is next to the schools and all that is just prime for any additional schools that we might need or any other kind of public service building that we need. It's all in that area. That's the main area of all our government, schools, and everything else. So to put a warehouse there is just, in my opinion, asinine. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Terrence Brown, 9 Pine Tree Drive. Thank you for finally getting these mics fixed. It's been over a year, me asking this, so thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank the officers of West Hampton. They were just, wonderful this past week in apprehending a suspect in Eric Woods. The officers, when they came out, were alert. Just made me feel, very safe being able to, witness that, listening to the concerns. And they were able to use, in my opinion, what I call crime prevention tools like Ring to basically identify this suspect that was trying to get into one of my neighbor houses. And one of the things when I moved here, I was kind of encouraging, the neighbors just talking about getting these type of systems, so we can basically watch each other's houses. So this right kind of really helped, and the officers are, they were on it. So I just want to thank them again for that. The other thing I want to ask the township community is to look at is the environmental factors like dust control. There's a lot of construction going on, and doing my canvassing for the township committee, talking to residents, due to the construction, there has been big clouds of dust. And, there are environmental factors that we should be caring about. I did talk to the coding official, and he said that the code language is kind of vague. So I think that we need to revisit that as well in the master plan and code, looking at how these infrastructures are being built. So, EPA has strict regulations on dust control. So I think that's something that we should look at. There are tools that they can use on site to limit these big clouds of dust. I came through Springdale Road and I couldn't even see through it because the dust cloud was that big. And other people have witnessed this by seeing dust on their houses and cars and things like that. So we do know that the dust is getting across the street. And I think, Mr. Mayor, you may live there, right? Correct? The other thing that I wanted to add is back to the master planner's draft provisions. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to, review it, but I do think that we need to look at some type of proximity and density in this, because from its measures, there was over almost 1 million square footage of warehouses to 8,000, according to the township website, 8,000, a little over 8,000 something individuals here in West Hampton. So with that much of a warehouse square footage, I think that there should be some type of measures put in place that will, have warehouses grow as the citizens grow in West Hampton, not just have all warehouses and little citizens. The other thing I would like for you to do is consider in your resolution about the Timbuktu property is to consider making that effort, valid. They said that they created, that was purchased for a museum. I would like to see, if you do decide to sell it, sell it to somebody that's going to, kind of preserve that heritage. That information, I think it is important that that type of historical evidence is, preserved here in this community, especially for African Americans. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, my name is Amber Pintatore, and I live at 71 Sherwood Lane. I do agree with the other commenters about, the proposed developments for the new master plan, especially the comment about wanting to reflect the environmental concerns in the Tarnsfield and Irick Woods, Irick Lakes area. Immediately behind my home, you can see it right from a Google Maps overview. There is a wetland. There's a bog on the Fernwood Springs farm that backs up right to my backyard. Sometimes it kind of overflows into my yard. So there are definitely wetlands back there in that neighborhood conglomerate. But that's, my comment's actually unrelated to the warehouse this week. So there's some interest in getting the Tarnsfield community sign reinstated where it used to be. I kind of put just a little casual comment out there in the community Facebook page, and it got a really good response. People seemed really excited, but before I put forth any additional effort or try to use any people's time or ask for a penny in fundraising, I want to just make sure it's actually possible that we could get a sign. It is West Hampton Township property land, that little median near the West Hampton Emergency Services building that used to have the sign. It was there when I first moved in 2018, and like a couple months after I moved in, the sign disappeared. And I was like, oh, they're probably just fixing it. It'll get replaced sometime soon. Here we are, it's almost 2023, and there's still no sign there. So I think it's probably not going to get replaced without any swell of community demand. So just, is that something that's possible? Like, if the community wanted to put a sign there, could we?
So, Ms. Amber, and you gotta remember, I'll never forget your name, that's my wife's name as well. But, one thing that we had talked about in the past that, when, Tony DeSilva was here, he kind of had like a vision to redo all the signs or put signs in places where they're not. And we talked about, I think we got some community redevelopment fund from one of the warehouses, and that was one of the things we talked about using it for. I think that you bring up a great idea for us to re-engage that idea. So I wouldn't exactly do a collection as of yet, but even at some point we talked about having like a subcommittee. So if you can stay in the loop, like we'll have a subcommittee and maybe bring you in to be able to help, with any designs or anything like that. And we were talking about using those funds, the funds that we use to update the basketball courts, using those funds to develop the community signs as well. Because I think that Spring Meadows even has like one, like the big thing about Spring Meadows was like they had like the really great signs in one part, and in the other part they had like a really small sign. And people kind of looked at it like that was the area where the townhomes were, and then why did they have such a small sign, et cetera, et cetera. So these are things that we had talked about in the past that kind of slipped through the cracks with like some of the reformation of like the committee itself. So it seems like something that we would talk about, and if you can stay in the loop, or please give your information to Wendy, and maybe in a few weeks we can talk about like maybe having a subcommittee of like, various people and looking at the sign situation and seeing if it's okay with the committee, because the committee, I'm one person, so the committee may not want to use those funds for that. But I think that that's something that we talked about previously, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is my guy right here. What you got for me? Sit over there. This is what happens. You got to get closer.
So my public comment is, remember back on September 6th, you passed an ordinance 7-2022. It was the bond ordinance for the fire apparatus, the truck. Do you remember that? So I was reading through that, and that ordinance became effective 20 days after the passage of that. So it would have been September the 26th. And that ordinance had a section in there that indicated that the CFO had to submit to you in writing a report on the disposition of those bond sales. Very detailed report. I looked through the various agendas from the meetings after that. I didn't see such a report sort of, quote, provided here. I guess comment one is that a public record or an open record? Number two, are you in receipt of such a report? Number three, can someone tell me what is the township's credit rating? I'd like to know. I think we'd all would like to know, because it may impact the sales of the bonds. I'd like to know how he's going to be dispositioning the bonds. As you know, the bond market's in fluctuation, et cetera. There's going to be potentially an interest rate hike tomorrow, so we know that's going to take some sting out of the bond sale. So I'm just curious, are they going to disposition the bonds short-term, long-term, et cetera? So that's my comment.
Thank you, Gary, I appreciate it. Anyone else? Oh, I'm on the wrong page. We're going to close public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Dates to remember. Next scheduled meeting will be December 6th at 7 p.m. Rabies Clinic, November the 12th, 9 to 11 a.m. at the West Hampton Township Municipal Building. Santa around town. It's in December. It'll be announced once we get a little bit more info. Fair? The administrators' reports are available, and committee liaison comments. Do we have any?
Matt, were you gonna comment? Her report.
Give the report.
She's gonna give the report.
I can say it quicker. So,
Go ahead.
administrators' report. I'm sorry.
The only thing that I have to report, unfortunately, because of the changes on the agenda, is that I just wanted to let everyone know that the veterans parking spots have all been painted across the various buildings. So we have the rec center, we have the fire EMS building, we have the spot out front.
Thank you.
What was that? The veterans parking spots have been painted. There's 3 spots. There's one at the rec center, there's one at the fire EMS building, and one here out front.
Committee liaison reports.
We are working on the senior dinner. We're getting together names, and we put out, if anyone had not been invited to previous senior dinners, to contact the office and get their name and address on it. We're not sure of the date yet. It's usually somewhere around the 12th of December. I'm meeting with the superintendent next Monday to go over things that we've done in the past, maybe get more artwork on the walls, talk about the essay contest, and come up with any ideas that he may have that we could work together. I do want to thank Jamie. I went to trunk or treat as a Rancoco Civic Association, and she had nice long fingernails that I could not get my tape open. So she was my tape person, so I could tape things to my car. Jamie, I really appreciate it. I was going crazy.
You're welcome.
So, but it was amazing. I think we must have had 500 or 600 kids. It just kept coming and coming and coming for over 2 hours. So Todd did an excellent job. No one really ran out of candy. He had extra. People shared. It went real well. About the master plan, I have a request. The next meeting is five weeks away. And I did ask Wendy about this. I realize when you have bills, you usually due in 30 days. And in 5 weeks, it's going to be more than 30 days. And I was wondering if we could have a meeting, just to have a workshop meeting, so we could get a presentation from the planner on the master plan. Yes, it's online. Yes, I've read it. Doesn't mean I understand everything about it. And I might have questions, and we're not allowed to ask questions tomorrow night at the meeting because we're on the township committee. So I would really like, when I vote on this, to have my questions answered and to understand it better. So I'm proposing that after the convention, that we on a Tuesday before the next meeting, have a workshop meeting. We could slip in the bills to make Bob H. happy, and we could have some questions and answer, and have the planner explain to us all those words that I don't understand and have questions about. So I guess it's up to you guys whether you want that. My last question is, I know I was 5 minutes late. Did we approve the minutes from October 18th, or were they pulled?
They were tabled.
Thank you. So what about a meeting? How do you all feel about that? A workshop meeting?
Well, we're getting ready to go in closed session. I think that we can all talk about that as a group, just because it's not part of the agenda here, but we can talk about that. I don't have an issue talking about that.
Talk about having a meeting?
Yeah, I think that is something that we could talk.
Executive, I don't think that's executive session.
No, but we can, outside even executive session, we could talk about it. We have communications during the week to try to, I don't know that it's, in my opinion, I don't know that we can set up what Tuesday, like next Tuesday's election day. The Tuesday after that, I don't know.
Well, this is after the convention. It doesn't have to be a Tuesday, but whenever it is, I would like not to have it come on my agenda and say vote on it without the planner to come talk to us.
Oh, I can 100% respect that.
Part of the Land Development Board asking questions all the time, and you know, I just want to be able to have time to learn and ask questions.
I 100% respect that, and I think that that's a fair point. I think, again, that's something that we have to discuss as a team, because the way our government is set up, we kind of decide everything as a team, and I don't want to speak out of line for anyone else.
That's fine.
Fair?
Yep.
Thank you. Any other reports?
I was at the trunk or treat. It was a great event. I got to clean the pumpkins, but I wanted to thank the rec department and all the volunteers that came to help, and there were some, local businesses and Cub Scouts and just, people wanting to do their trunks, so it was great. I also have, for the rec committee, we are looking at still possibly doing breakfast with Santa, but not sure about date or, if we're actually doing it, because it's been postponed the past few years, so that's still being tabled with the rec committee. That's it.
Anyone else? Sure. Lastly, thank you for all the residents who came out and all the great questions. As far as interjecting, what we're going to do is, as far as the master plan, I would think that a lot of those questions are going to be appropriate tomorrow night to be able to ask them some detailed questions. Well, as far as what they're going to answer or not going to answer, right? But obviously, we're going to try to have an open forum as well as the Land Development Board to be able to make sure we address all the residents' needs around, the land development, around the master plan and what that looks like for everyone and how that works. So I don't want you to think that you're forgotten or we're not answering the questions. Two of us are on the Land Development Board, so we want to make sure that we're able to address everyone's question and everyone's needs all at one time. Yes, it will be open tomorrow, sure. 7 o'clock it starts, yes.
Zoom. It would be
Yes.
Zoom.
It'll be on Zoom, but they take questions. Some of the questions may be limited, but sir, I promise you, we're trying to do all that we can. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And for everyone else, I think that we brought up some great ideas. Ms. Amber brought up a great idea and was able to re-energize something that we had spoke about previously that I think definitely needs our energy. And I don't, obviously, again, just to be consistent, I think that that's something that the committee can meet about and talk about versus, addressing it out in front of everyone. So with that being said, we're going to go into executive session. Resolution 11-1-2022, resolution authorizing the Township Committee and support staff to meet in private session and authorizing the exclusion of the public from the portion of the meeting dealing with specific issues requiring non-public discussion, attorney-client privilege, tax settlement, and real estate property. Do we have a motion to enter into executive session?
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Longo. Yes. Gray.
Yes.
Mayor Henry.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And thank you again, everyone.